Live from the Hyman Brown TV studios at CUNY's Graduate Center in Midtown Manhattan, I'm Tina Beth Pena. Welcome to CUNY TV's live town hall on food insecurity. We're here with our studio audience and guests, and all of you at home joining us live on our Facebook and CUNY TV website. Now, food insecurity has been called the hidden crisis on college campuses. What exactly is it? Well, it's a fancy name for hunger. Up to half of all college students, including students at some of the country's most elite colleges, say that they either don't get enough to eat or don't know where their next meal is coming from. Here to discuss this issue, how it affects studying and graduation rates, and what can be done to support these students in the future on our own CUNY campuses and nationwide, are Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America, Kamisha Grant, Vice President of Community Connections and Reach for Food Bank, New York City, Dr. Nick Freudenberg, Director of the CUNY Urban Food Policy Institute, Deborah Hart, Director of the Food Pantry and Single Stop Program at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, and Avery Toledo, a CUNY Law School graduate and a former recipient of CUNY Food Assistance Programs. Thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate it. Now, for the uninformed, how would you define and what is food insecurity?
Food insecurity is a horribly wonkish term I can never even explain to my mother. But what it really does is explain hunger in the American context. It's not necessarily people starving in the streets the way you might see in North Korea or Somalia. It's hunger in the American context. People choosing between food and rent, people choosing between food and healthcare, people rationing food, people going without food, people buying cheaper, more fattening food over time, people skipping meals, parents going without food to feed their children, college students going to college without that meal they really need, without a breakfast or really without that lunch. So even the levels of food insecurity we have in America on college campuses might not be as bad as North Korea, but that's a pretty low threshold. They still have very significant levels of hunger and food insecurity in America, and it dramatically harms both health and academic achievement.
Wow. Anyone else wants to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that it really is an issue that impacts more New Yorkers than most people are aware of. One out of every 5 New Yorkers is impacted by food insecurity in our city, and disproportionately, women, children, seniors, and veterans are more and more on the lines to get food from food pantries and soup kitchens. So it's a huge issue in our city.
Sure. Nick, tell me about CUNY.
So I've been studying food insecurity here at CUNY for the last 8 years or so, and we found, using a conservative definition of food insecurity, that about 52,000 CUNY undergraduate students are food insecure. That's 1 in 5. Other researchers with more sensitive definitions come up with higher numbers. And about 35,000 CUNY students report that they've often or sometimes been hungry in the last 12 years. And as Joel said, we're particularly concerned about the short and long-term impact on health and on academic achievement. You know, a college degree is the best lifetime protection for health, well-being, economic security. And unfortunately, too many students at CUNY have food insecurity interfere with their ability to get through school and complete it on time. And that's not a choice a civilized society should offer to its students.
Sure. Now we have up a graphic that talks about how the main students who suffer from food insecurity here at CUNY are students who make $30,000 a year or less.
Yes, that's right.
Students of color. Let's talk more about the actual students suffering from food insecurity.
Yes, and you can see that there are differences. It's also true that students of all income ethnic groups experience food insecurity, but the rates are highest among low-income students. Among women, the rates are higher than for male students, and the rates here at CUNY are higher in the community colleges than in the 4-year schools, primarily because community colleges enroll more low-income students than 4-year schools. And so that's where our efforts in addressing food insecurity need to be focused.
And just to put this in context, I laugh when I see some policymakers say that, well, earning $200,000 a year doesn't make you wealthy. Well, the average family in New York makes $50,000 a year. And I was briefed at some community colleges in New York, something like 80% of the students, I believe, come from incomes below $20,000 a year. So let's get real about this. There's a serious poverty and hunger crisis in America because there's a wage crisis in New York and America. People just don't earn enough to feed their families. And certainly students who are trying to go to school and work in addition to their studies just don't earn enough money to pay for everything.
Sure, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you're paying $1,500 a month, let's say on rent, and you're only making $25,000 per year, that probably leaves you about $6,000 for the rest of your whatever you need to spend on at home. That's nothing for an entire year. So at BMCC, what have you come across there?
Well, I mean, and so to add to the students who are making less than $20,000 is the hidden student who can't even report an income because they're undocumented. And so, you know, we actually experience a number of students who, in that category, when they come to us for services, particularly to utilize the food pantry, part of the reason that they are experiencing a lot of the difficulties because they can't work, you know, or if they're working, they can't report an income. So it's very difficult, you know, to get the hidden population to come out. You know, when those that are working may come forward, if not some stigmas that are attached to it, those that are not can't be seen ordinarily, you know, it's very difficult to get them to come forward. So what we're seeing are a number of students who, in all of the categories, are balancing between eating and trying to get to school, or eating and feeding their children, or eating and you know, not jumping the turnstiles. It's a very, very, very serious situation because it affects so many other aspects of their lives.
Sure, and one thing that you mentioned were stigmas. Tell me about some of those stigmas that are out there.
Well, I mean, some of the things that students have said to us is that in some instances it's a cultural thing. You know, they are coming from places where you don't depend on the government, or you don't look for a handout. You don't look beyond your family for assistance. In other instances, it's just students who don't want others to know that they may be experiencing some difficulty right now. And in a lot of ways, in some ways, when I work one-on-one with students experiencing that, you know, I try to equate it to the whole concept of having a bank account, for example, right? Where you're working, taxes are being taken, maybe, you know, it's going into an account. It's going into an account. When you're ready to withdraw, which is either SNAP or in the instance of the food pantry, there should be no shame in going to that bank and pulling out some of those funds to make sure that you're okay. Many times students associate the relief of coming to get assistance with understanding that I put into this system, perhaps when, you know, I was working, and now I just need to withdraw some money out of there.
I think the other important piece is the dignity, right? And so it's so important that whoever is working in a pantry, whoever is interacting with that person that comes forth, you have to treat people with dignity. It's very difficult to join a pantry line, and people aren't there just because they want to be. They are there because they have to be and they need to be. So we really want to make sure that anybody who is able to come forward, that anybody who's working with them really treats them with that dignity and respect. Also, the cost of food in New York City has gone up tremendously. It's about $3.74 a meal, when the national average is about $3. So it's really high. It's much more expensive just to eat in our city. It's really difficult.
And that number you just gave, that's about the average amount on a food stamps or SNAP allocation in New York, $3.74. It's crazy.
We're also finding that there are a number of policy obstacles that make it more difficult for students to get help. For example, there was a recent report by the Government Accountability Office finding that a relatively low percentage of college students who were in fact eligible for SNAP weren't enrolled because of so many barriers. And with immigrant populations, policy has been moving in the wrong direction, actually, and it's even immigrant families that are eligible, or some members of the family are eligible, are afraid because they're afraid it will lead to encounters with immigration authorities. So I think we have a task in front of us to identify those policies and begin to change them. There's some states where it's much easier for college students to enroll in SNAP, and New York should be looking to those examples to make sure that everybody who's eligible is actually enrolled.
Avery, now you experienced this firsthand at CUNY. Tell us about what exactly you experienced in terms of food insecurity.
Well, a lot of it was already mentioned, and I'm just amazed at how on point the panelists are, from the stigma, from having to make choices, to even hopping the train. Do I put money on my monthly Metro card or my weekly Metro card to get to class? If you're juggling, for me personally, juggling work and also a daughter at the time that when I attended Hostos Community College as an ASAP student, all of those factors come in. And so, a lot of times there were a lot of choices that I had to make that really centered around where does my next personal meal come from. I had to look out for my daughter. I had to make sure there's food on the table for my family. And so what do I do? And so, I was very blessed that some of the programs that were in place at the time, I became an ASAP student, and I was able to speak to my personal counselor and let them know what I was going through, which relates to the stigma, because, I come from, culture where it's, embarrassing. You don't share that type of atmosphere. It's an embarrassing thing to say that you are having difficulty providing for your family, especially for your child and stuff like that. So it was, I was one of the fortunate, thankful for some of the programs, but especially to the ASAP program that allowed to give me guidance and to direct me to the food pantries or other places within CUNY that I could get food.
Did you find that other students were surprised, that is, if they knew that you were having issues with food insecurity?
So, given my background, it wasn't hard for me to share with other people the fact that I faced these problems. But many other students, they were very embarrassed. Some of the signs you can see as you go to school, you're eating and you notice that another student next to you who is trying to focus on their books, their reading, and they're constantly looking up at you. And you can see that there's a genuine interest, not in what they're reading, but more so what you're eating. And, I would talk to them and approach them and, try to share my experience and share whatever I have. But a lot of times, many students don't want to talk about that. It's a sense of it being embarrassed. And, they don't want to share that. They don't want to publicize that.
That's something. Deborah, what have you found at Bmcc with some of the students?
In terms of the students being able to focus, oftentimes when I go into the classrooms and I talk with the students, I do presentations, I ask some of the basic questions. Who has health care? Many students will raise their hand or not raise their hand because of the single stop program. We assist students with a whole host of the social services that helps with any barriers to their education. If I ask anyone, or if I ask the question, anyone in here who feel that they may want something to eat at the moment, no one raises their hands. And I don't expect them to, I really don't. But the reason that I do it is because I want folks to understand that it is really okay. It's okay to say that I'd like something to eat. Again, trying to address the entire issue of stigma. But then it allows me to have a conversation with the students about the services that are on the campus that are available to them. And it allows me that opportunity to talk about the food vouchers that we have to address hunger. For the cafeteria, the supermarket gift cards that we have, the pantry, the fact that we do process the SNAP application on the campus. So it opens the door once they're feeling a little bit safe within that 5 minutes that a professor will give me to come into the classroom. Once they're feeling safe in that environment, it opens the door to have this conversation about feeling okay about coming forward and accessing the services, particularly food.
Sure, and that feeling of being safe, I know, has to impact the graduation and dropout rates at CUNY. Nick, tell me about that a little bit.
Yes, I think I've been teaching at CUNY for several decades, and I can see that when my students are hungry, when they have to worry about feeding themselves and their family, it's much harder for them to focus on schoolwork. When they have to work 20 hours a week or more in order to get student aid or to be eligible for SNAP food stamps, that's less time for their work. We want them to be spending more time on their schoolwork, not less time. And so, and we also know as public health researchers that food insecure people are more likely to be depressed, are more likely to suffer paradoxically from obesity because unhealthy food that is calorie dense but nutrient low is cheaper, so it makes it's rational to buy unhealthy food because it fills you up faster. So there are just a lot of adverse consequences. And I think, this year, CUNY, in its budget request to the state, has asked for several million additional dollars to address food insecurity. And this week, the state legislature and the governor are sitting down to divide up the budget. And here's an opportunity for the governor who last year gave, in his State of the State speech, committed to no college student be hungry. An excellent goal. Here's a chance to make that real. And the legislature and the governor, by putting more resources into food insecurity, can help to improve our graduation rates, which will contribute not only to the welfare of our students, but to the economy of the city as a whole.
I also build upon the importance of what Dr. Freudenberg said about the SNAP program, the food stamps program, and this ridiculous double standard where it's nearly impossible for full-time students to get this nutrition assistance. As important as food pantries and food banks and food rescue groups are, they run out of food. They don't always provide the choice people want. Most CUNY students are commuters, so you have to travel 2 or 3 boroughs with this food that someone else picked out for you in your backpack. The smarter way, the way a civilized country would do it, was allow people to access the government nutrition safety net. And as you said, there's no question that the best way to reduce the chances of being in poverty in the long run is getting an education. So we have this ridiculous double standard that says to other young people, when I was in college, I was told, don't work more than 8 hours a week, work study, it'll kill your studies. But for low-income people, we're telling them you must work 20 hours or more. And that's why we've got to get the federal government to change this. I urge everyone to contact the member of the House of Representatives and Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand tomorrow to tell them to change this. And 2, to get the state legislature and the governor to do what they can within administrative guidelines in New York State to basically say that we have other ways of meeting the work requirements in the state. It's good that we have these pantries and kitchens, but let me be clear, that is an insane backup. The first, we should have higher wages, and second, we should ensure that there's a SNAP program that really covers students.
And SNAP really is the first line of defense, right? We don't want students shopping in a pantry. We want the pantry to be a supplement. So your SNAP benefits allow you to shop in a supermarket, and that's where everyone deserves to shop. And then as things run out toward the end of the month, because what we know for certain is that SNAP does not last for a full month. It lasts on average 2.5 weeks. And the pantry really is to supplement those items that you no longer have available at home. And so that's when you come in. 1 in 4 New Yorkers who live in the borough of Brooklyn actually are on SNAP, 1 in 3 in the Bronx. So that's 1 out of every 3 people receive SNAP benefits in the Bronx.
I wanted to mention just one more resource for food security, and that's the cafeterias, college cafeterias. And until recently, most college administrators have seen cafeterias and food services as revenue streams. But they could also be supports for students to, by making healthy, affordable food available, they would enable students to get healthy food on campus and to avoid some of the episodes of food insecurity. In our public school system across the country, we make free lunches and breakfasts available to students because we understand that people who are hungry have more trouble learning. And we need to think about translating that onto the college level. CUNY is about to renegotiate its contract with its food service vendors, and by making health and affordability a priority in the new agreement we make with food service vendors, we'll be able to promote the health of our students and increase graduation rates.
We have our first question from our studio audience, Gabriel Reyes. What do you got?
Thank you. My question is for all the panelists, and my question is, what role, if any, does the food industry and or money in politics play in the topic of food insecurity? Thank you.
Well, I'll take that. My background was in politics before I became the nonpartisan activist I am today. And the fact of the matter is it has all to do with this crisis in America. Right now, the Trump administration is trying to impose additional work requirements on low-income people who are temporarily unemployed and underemployed. And I asked a member of the U.S. Senate, would you, a Republican from the South, would you apply the same work requirements to a landowner who gets millions of dollars in USDA agriculture subsidies, even if they never work the land? And they sort of laughed, well, I don't understand your question. So the fact is that large agricultural interests have given hundreds of millions of dollars to federal campaigns over the last few decades. Low-income people don't have money to dedicate, and that's why we're the richest country in the history of the world, and yet we have 40 million Americans who live in households that can't afford enough food. So it has everything to do with money in politics, that low-income people have to band together to build a new poor people's movement. Now, the food industry actually has a self-interest in this. Here in New York City this year, the SNAP program is going to spend maybe $2.8 to $2.9 billion. The entire food economy in New York City is about $30 billion. So even with the restrictions on SNAP, even with the cutbacks in SNAP, SNAP benefits still account for 1 in 10 food dollars spent in New York City. So it's actually in the food industry's best interest to work with all of us, and many of them do. Many of them fund our organization, that provide food to us, to say that we have to join together to end this problem.
And to give another example, if you look at the president's proposed budget, draconian cuts in safety net programs to address the huge deficit caused by his tax relief for the wealthiest Americans and the wealthiest corporations. So it's Robin Hood in reverse, you know, taking from the poor and giving to the rich.
And if I could add, I mean, in terms of finances, if there weren't organizations or foundations like the Pantry Foundation, I don't know where many of us would be in terms of funding our pantries and in terms of funding emergency services on our campuses. So, you know, it's very true that the politics play very heavily, but it's also true that if we did not have many of those foundations, the Bmcc Foundation and some of those other foundations, we couldn't exist. We just couldn't exist.
We have another question from Facebook, Ray Brown Mully. How do the food pantries at BMCC work? Do students have to show any documentation of low income? How much food can they take?
So a student just has to come and tell us that they're hungry. He or she's hungry. We minimize the extent to which we inquire or require students to produce anything when they come to us. They come into a reception area, they simply fill out an intake form if they haven't before, then they go back and sit with one of my licensed social workers, or me, because I still do very much face-to-face. I enjoy actually the interaction with our students. So we do a quick assessment. And the reason we do assessment is that what we find out throughout the years, what we found out throughout the years is that when a student comes to us with one issue, it's usually several other things that are occurring. Maybe homeless going on, there may be some domestic violence. So we do a quick assessment to try to figure out exactly what may be occurring in the home. One, because we want to see what other resources we need to attach to the student. And two, we need to make sure that we're helping the student to put a more permanent plan, a more sustained plan in place. Because as Kamisha mentioned, the pantry really should only be an emergency backup sort of program. And we give the student two choices. In our offices, we have a list of all of the food that's currently in the pantry. They can have a choice of either coming with us to the pantry, or they can sit with us in the office and go through the list and we go pack the bags for them. And the reason we do that is that many students really are still, as I mentioned before, dealing with the entire issue of having to admit that they need assistance. And so they may not necessarily want to go to the pantry. We don't do the lines, and you know, as Kamisha mentioned as well, this is such a sensitive issue that you really have to work with students around trusting you. It's a huge trust issue for them to want to even accept food or even when they come for it, to walk out of there, you know, with the bags. The bags also don't say they say Bmcc. That's it. You know, the bags are not bags that, we have a beautiful logo for our pantry, our Pantry, but it doesn't say anything about pantry because, again, students are just not willing, you know, to have that, that advertised as yet.
Just to add to what Deborah was saying, it's really important that you are offering choice, right? Because what we don't want are these mystery bags of groceries being handed to students. We don't know what you like. We don't know what you're allergic to. We don't know what your family likes. So it's super important to be able to have that list of items. If they can't visually see what the offerings are, they can then choose, and those are the items that they can take home. And it's also important that they are taking home enough food, not just for themselves, but also for their families. We don't know who's at home, right? You mentioned your young child. There could be parents. Generally, there are multiple generations living in a household. So we want to make sure they're getting enough food, not just for themselves, but really for everyone in the household.
And just to add to that really quickly, they get a choice of the 5 food groups. And they get several items from the 5 food groups. And they could choose any that they want. At Bmcc, we've really made a very conscious effort to be sure that we are purchasing items that are very easy to open, the Pop-Tops, for example, or the quinoas and the soy milks. And so we're trying to do a real variety of food for our students, and they're telling us what they like and what they don't like. And so we're ordering food based on what's moving off of those shelves. So we're not just packing the shelves because, you know, it's what we think. We really are getting our students' input in terms of even finding out if there are allergies to certain foods, you know, that we're stocking or not stocking as a result of getting their input. So our pantry is very much driven by what our students are saying to us that their needs are in terms of, you know, the types of items. But we definitely do the 5 groups, and we do 3 meals a day for 3 days. That's the initial USDA My Plate recommendation.
Avery, did you have that experience? Did you have choice when you were in school?
Yeah, so what's very key is because I was in a particular program called the ASAP program, which allowed me to have an advisor. When I spoke to them, not only was there choice in the fact of what I can eat and stuff like that, as far as what they were providing, what groceries, but also more importantly about the choices I make just in general in eating. I mean, a lot of, during that time I was eating a lot of fast food and stuff like that. And that's a whole different type of choice about, you know, what is it that I'm putting into my body? What is it that I'm getting? So, you know, that comes into play when I start choosing whatever groceries or when a student decides that they want particular things that they're interested in. You know, it changes their whole, you know, their whole nutrition outlook, and, you know, they could build on that.
Our institute, our Food Policy Institute, has been bringing together the 13 food pantries at CUNY and the 8 single-stop programs for a few years. And I think what we've learned from listening to people is the most successful pantries, like the one at Bmcc, see themselves not just, and perhaps not even mainly, as a provider of food, but as a hub to connect people to help. Because I think, as Joel said, a pantry by itself will never be able to address the food security needs of all our students who are hungry. But as a place to connect students to the variety of benefit programs that can help them, to employment, to earned income tax credit, that way it can address their life circumstances. And they've also become places where students can do educate other students and do outreach, and also to do advocacy to address some of the policy barriers. We've worked with students at Hustos and John Jay colleges to prepare students to be food security advocates who reach out to their peers, but also lead campaigns against stigma, who encourage the college administration to put more attention on meeting the food security needs of their students. And so having that comprehensive view that a food pantry is the starting point, is the necessary but not the sufficient condition to address this very deep-seated problem facing so many colleges.
Sure, and it's important to note that these aren't your typical college students having ramen noodles. This is far beyond that. And I think sometimes people think of, oh yeah, that's just something small and inconsequential, and it's not. This is something that's on a bigger scale.
Absolutely.
And it's very different, if I may say frankly, that if you grow up in an upper middle class or upper class environment and you briefly struggle and don't get everything you want and occasionally have to get ramen, than living this life for your life.
Hold that thought. We'll talk more about food pantries and what else is being done on college campuses to fight food insecurity right after this break. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
I'm a CUNY early college graduate where I graduated with my high school diploma and associate's degree. Being that I was so young taking college classes gave me more motivation to continue my education. I went on to finish my undergrad at Brooklyn College. And I currently work as a 6th grade math teacher at the same very school that I graduated from as an early college student.
When I decided to enroll back into school, being a mother, it was hard in getting back into studying. So I went through Math Start instead of having to do the remedial. And I continued into the ASAP program, which has been life-changing for me.
I started in the continuing education program as an ESL student. My interaction with faculty really changed my view on how much education can provide.
If it weren't for CUNY, I probably would have second-guessed my potential. I'm a first generation in terms of going to college, getting a degree. I'm able to provide for my family a lot more, and it's something that I didn't think was originally possible. CUNY is equalizing the playing field for students, particularly students of color, students who are low income, and students who are first generation.
Nobody in my family went to college. Now I not only learned English, I graduated and then I am teaching English, helping immigrants.
Welcome back to CUNY TV's live town hall about food insecurity on college campuses. We're also live on Facebook and the CUNY TV website. Before our break, Joel, you were telling us about the differences between a typical Upper East Side student versus a food insecure one.
Well, there are a lot of class biases that people bring to their framing about this issue. And people hearing this, they may say, oh, college students, they don't have enough food, they're eating ramen noodles, maybe they blew their whole budget on their beer budget. That's a total misunderstanding of what working people actually go through. They're working 2 or 3 jobs in addition to their full-time studies. And this isn't just about them having less money to party with. This is having less money to pay rent and buy food. So people need to understand this is a serious national crisis. And again, these pantries are doing amazing, amazing, amazing work, and the food banks doing amazing work. But understand that all the food pantries and food banks and food rescue groups in America equal about 1/10th or about 1/20th of the government nutrition assistance safety net. And that's considering the government nutrition assistance safety net is too small and serves too many people. So I keep coming back like a broken record, but it's important to say that we can't out-charity this problem. And at my alma mater, Columbia, students started a food pantry there. For goodness sakes, the endowment of Columbia is $10 billion, more than the gross national product of half the nations on the planet. God bless the president of Columbia University. He makes $4 million. He's the highest paid nonprofit executive in America, makes 10 times what the president of the United States makes. Now, maybe he earns it more than this president, but not more than the last president. They can maybe pay the president $3 million and spend $1 million making sure the meal plans actually feed kids, instead of saying students at this ridiculously wealthy campus have to rely on charities.
I'd like to talk about the economics of this a little more. A study by researchers, a research group at Stanford, found that CUNY sends more people into the middle class in the last 10 years than all the Ivy League schools, University of Chicago, MIT, and Stanford combined. And that means that our students who graduate become productive citizens, become voters, become taxpayers, contribute to the well-being of this city and this society. But we could do much better if we helped all those students who, for health reasons, social reasons, and food insecurity, don't graduate. What better investment than to invest in our young people and to say we're not going to force people to choose between being hungry and getting an education. So it would be in the interests of the vast majority of Americans to spend money to really make hunger and food insecurity on college campuses history, to end it. We should be doing that for all food insecurity, but it would be an achievable problem. We're proposing through the group that I'm part of that CUNY set the goal of ending the most serious form of food insecurity, hunger, in the next 5 years. We think that's an achievable goal, an ambitious goal, but it requires the governor, the legislature, the mayor, the city council, the CUNY Board of Trustees, our chancellor, to make this a priority.
And we'll get back and talk about that more in a little bit, but Danielle Bannister in the audience has a question. Danielle?
I'm actually a student at Lehman, and I'm writing a paper on food insecurity right now. My question is, how does urban farming help with communities?
Urban agriculture is an important part of the food system, and there are many exciting innovations in urban agriculture. The New York City Housing Authority has 5 farms, and many community organizations are doing farming. But for the foreseeable future, we don't think that that's a part of solving food insecurity. It's a great way of teaching people about food. It's a great way of having people understand food. But at least for the present time, there is a farm on Kingsborough Community College. It's a great place, and they play a really important role in educating students about food. And they do provide some food, some fresh, healthy food for students. At Hustos Community College, there are aquaponic towers. They're growing greens and providing them to students. But that isn't the way we're going to work our way out of this problem, I believe.
I agree 1,000%. Everything you said. Community farming, community gardening, really important to do, can reclaim open spaces and preserve them as a real community meeting center. Sometimes crime around these community gardens is reduced. They're a wonderful place to teach about nutrition. They can add to the nutritional input of the community at the margins, but the volume of food produced by them is not nearly enough to feed any city in the United States, even a small city, no less a city like New York City, number one. And number two, they're seasonal. I like eating 12 months out of the year, not just the few months out of the year you can harvest in New York City. So they're a really important thing to do. I say to students working on this, keep on keeping on, but let's not let that distract us from our need to create a just society. And let's not, I'm not saying you're saying this, but some people say, well, if low-income people just grew all their own food or shopped better or cooked better, that's blaming the victims. There's no substitute for creating a society that works, that creates jobs, pays a living wage, and ensures that full-time students can eat and have housing as they're studying.
And I just would like to share a little bit of statistics on what we're seeing just in terms of the numbers of students who are actually going to pantries, CUNY pantries. So on average, we're serving about 2,000 students a month in college campus pantries. And that number, that was in 2018. In 2019, we've seen a 26% increase.
Wow.
So just to really think about the magnitude and the volume of the issue, it's growing.
Wow, that's a perfect segue, because studies have shown that the Bronx is the city's hungriest borough, and students at Lehman College, which is located in the Bronx, have taken matters into their own hands by starting a food pantry. Craig Thompson reports.
A lot of our students skip meals, but they don't think anything of it.
It was that revelation that led students like these to start a food pantry on Lehman College's campus more than 2 years ago.
The minute we shared that idea of starting a food pantry on campus, all of our students started sharing ideas of like a peer that they knew who was hungry, someone who they knew had a bottle of water and was sipping that water during the entire day so that this person wouldn't be hungry.
The pantry is there for both students and their families.
Every time I come to a pantry, I never have in mind what I want. I always have in mind what my child will eat and how long can I keep this amount of food in my house.
Cassandra Montes lives in a homeless shelter with her 4-year-old son. She says that initially she was ashamed to talk about her situation, but now as a student leader, she encourages people to use the pantry.
I made it my task to actually go out there. Like, it's okay for me to come to a food pantry. It's okay for you to come. I will go with you if you need that help.
The pantry is open 3 days a week and serves about 50 students a day.
Students typically come in and they get 10 items, and it's items that would make a well-balanced meal.
Jessica Mills is the pantry coordinator and also a client. She creates social media posts like these to help her schoolmates make healthier decisions.
When clients come in, we give them tips on what's better to eat. We create recipe guides where they can follow. Most of our things on social media is actual dinners that we cook. It's actual smoothies that we make. It's actual things that we use from the pantry. We have a hashtag that says fighting hunger together, knocking down food insecurities. Like, we are dedicated to it. We want to reverse that. We want to change that mindset.
Reporting for CUNY TV, I'm Craig Thompson.
Now, for people who are just tuning in and they don't know what a food pantry is, tell us, what is a food pantry, like what we just saw?
Sure. So I have to say, I started Food Bank in New York City many years ago, probably 2014. And at that time, I was a part of the original conversations with CUNY, and there were no pantries on college campuses. And since we're now at 13. So I just want to say that the administration has really been amazing in really identifying that this is an issue, a challenge, and really allowing this to really infiltrate the system, the college campus pantry. So it's been amazing. A food pantry really is, again, a place where anybody in our city who is struggling to afford food can show up and they can shop for grocery items that they can take home for themselves and their families. You attest to need just by showing up. As Deborah said earlier, you do not have to have any information about your income, your taxes. We don't ask for any of that. We don't want to deter people. We want to encourage people who are hungry to come in and be able to get their needs met. We want to know how many people are in your family because we do want to give you enough food. So you may be asked some questions just about family size, but that's simply because we want to make sure you have enough food for everyone in your household. The food is healthy, it's nutritious, it's across the 5 food groups, and we really want to make sure that produce is really prioritized. Fresh produce is super expensive to afford in the supermarket, so when you have SNAP benefits and you're shopping on a minimum income, it's really difficult to make that decision to spend $6 on strawberries, right? So we want to make sure that those items are also available in the pantry.
Sure.
I'm a college professor, so I need to have a nerdy discussion of numbers, some of the numbers we've heard. And it's wonderful that 2,000 or 2,500 students a month visit CUNY food pantries. But our surveys show that 52,000 CUNY students are food insecure. And so we're reaching only a tiny proportion of the food insecure students who need help through all the programs we're doing. You know, our estimates are that somewhere around 14 or 15% of food insecure students have actually visited any of the services that provide help. And so we need to expand those programs. We need to connect more people to SNAP. CUNY would do well to have a very assertive campaign to enroll every student who's eligible for SNAP in that program. We think there are many who are eligible who are not yet enrolled, and then also to look at some of these other things. The food pantries are wonderful. They need to be more and bigger, but we also need to look at all the other things we can be doing to really take care of this problem.
You're exactly right. And one other point to that, these food pantries basically are giving out all the food they have, unlike the SNAP program, which theoretically expands when the economy goes south, which may happen soon. These food pantries, once you give out the food, you're done. So instead of 2,000 students getting the food from the existing food pantries, 4,000 students got it. You wouldn't reduce hunger by that much. It would just mean the other 2,000 would get less food. That's why I come back to that we need these longer term programs like the SNAP program, which theoretically does expand to meet the expanded need. And we need more state and city funding for these pantries on campuses.
Sure, we have another question. It's from Sean Rasmussen.
Great, thank you all. My question is for Mr. Toledo. Can you speak about your experience, or more about your experience in ASAP, how it benefited you, and how students facing food insecurity can benefit from ASAP and similar academic programs here at the university?
Well, so I mean, there's so much with ASAP. ASAP was just a tremendous program for me. It allowed me, well, I'll get to the food insecurity at the end, but it gave me an advisor. It gave me somebody to speak to, not only about academic, but any other issues that was not really required of social work. It helped me get a scholarship. I mean, I became a Skydden Scholar and was on my road to graduating law school because of the ASAP program. The ASAP program also provided me with textbooks, so I didn't have to spend money on that. That even though they were temporary textbooks, it allowed me to save that money and use it in other aspects of my life, whether it be food or living. They also provided me with transportation, so that's even less money. So the ASAP program was just tremendous, and it's a shame that it's not many students take advantage of it. As far as food insecurity and how they helped alleviate that with me, it wasn't, we really didn't have food pantries at the time per se, but there were places that you could go and they would speak to somebody and, you know, you would get groceries. But another aspect that the ASAP program did was direct me to the different events that were happening on campus, whether it was student or faculty driven, which was always catered. And as you progress through CUNY and you go through higher and higher education, there's a lot more of these events. But over at Hostos Community College, since it was a very small college and it was very instrumental in pushing the students into generating clubs and holding these events, you know, the ASAP representative or the counselor that was assigned to you would always tell you about what events were going on. And if they knew your circumstances, they could nudge you a little bit like, yeah, you know, listen, maybe you're not really interested in this topic, but, you know, it is a source of, you know, somewhere you could get a nice food and, you know, you could do this and that. Another great thing that was very important about the ASAP program was that it was cohort centered. Mm-hmm. So besides that, making it easier to progress through my studies, but also I was fortunate enough to be in a room with other individuals who had like circumstances like I did. So if, you know, many of us could talk about the issues about, you know, how we're, you know, how we're solving our problems, whether it was food or other issues related academically. So the ASAP program was just phenomenal. If it wasn't for that, I never would have finished law school.
Now, for those who are uninformed, Sean, can you tell us what ASAP actually is?
Sure. ASAP stands for Accelerated Study and Associate Programs. It's a structured academic support program here at the university situated across 9 CUNY colleges. We also offer ACE, Accelerate, Complete, Engage, at John Jay College and now Lehman College. The program provides students with a dedicated academic advisor from their point of entry until graduation, as well as financial support services, including tuition assistance, textbook assistance, and transportation assistance.
Thank you. And I think what's important to note, too, for anyone that's watching, that to have somebody here like Avery showing that you can get out of a situation that is insecure and show what you can do with it. And thank you very much for being here, because that's a big deal.
I just want to add to that. You know, the tremendous thing about the ASAP program for someone like me was because I was actually homeless about 5 years prior to that, and really homeless. I lived in Central Park. You know, I went through the shelter system, and it's, you know, some people don't realize that when you transition out of the shelter system, it's not as easy as the next day, well, you know, you're making enough money and you can survive on your own. There's still that long, you know, road in order to transition out of that. And the ASAP program was just so instrumental in making sure that I didn't backslide into becoming homeless again, but continuing my rise and continuing my education.
Wow, that's something.
So I think Avery is just one example of a success story, and congratulations. Absolutely. It's just such a wonderful achievement you've made. And there are many programs at CUNY that help people to achieve success. But I think the challenge for CUNY in the years to come is to make sure that those programs can reach all the students who need help, not just those who have the motivation and the dedication and are lucky enough to have a good counselor, but all of our 278,000 students who are enrolled in degree programs. And when we are successful in that, we'll be able to achieve the graduation rates that are similar to the elite schools. We'll be able to graduate the vast majority of people who enter our community colleges and our senior colleges and bring the benefits to them and to their families and their communities and the city as a whole.
So how important is it to have something like Governor Cuomo's proposed program of No Student Goes Hungry? How does that play into this, and how do you think that's going to play a role in CUNY in the future?
It's vital to have government leadership. You know, to be schooled, you must be fueled. To be well-read, you must be well-fed. Those are my two Dr. Seuss lines of the night, and it's absolutely true. My father was a proud graduate of City College. He went on to become an electrical engineer, helped with the space program, and he was given this great aid by our society. But rent was a lot cheaper then. Food was a lot cheaper then. And people say, oh, we don't want to be dependent on government. Well, please. The wealthiest in the society are the ones that get the most aid from government. So it really grills me when I see low-income working people say, oh, I don't want to get this help. I said, if you had the richest uncle on the planet, wouldn't you ask that uncle for help? And they say, yeah, well, your rich uncle's called Sam. Get it.
Kamisha, how has the Food Bank New York City been playing a role?
So Food Bank for New York City, we actually have a network of over 1,000 soup kitchens and pantries across the city. So I know we're talking a lot about CUNY, but really wanting to make sure that the audience knows that if you know anyone who is food insecure, a student may not want to go visit the pantry at the local school that they attend, but they can go anywhere in this city and be able to get food as well. I mean, the issue is widespread, and we want to make sure that the resources are there. We have the ability to, with $1, provide a meal for 5 days. I'm sorry, $1 helps us to provide 5 meals. So if you want to donate even $1, even the smallest amount, we can actually use that $1 to donate and be able to get 5 meals for anybody who's hungry in our city. So anybody can help and can get involved, and we also need volunteers. So if anybody is willing to help, you can come and volunteer with us. We actually need 800 volunteers a week to be able to do the work that we do on this very widespread scale, and so anybody in New York who's interested. But advocacy is really key in raising awareness and using your voices and writing letters. It really is advocacy and the ability to raise your voice and use your voice to raise awareness in the city. That really is going to help make the difference.
Sure. Mia Adams in our studio audience has a question. Mia.
Hello, I'm a former food insecurity student. I was actually helped by Single Stop Food Pantry, and it helped me be the first in my family to graduate. I just want to ask the panelists, what do you say to people that don't know how to ask for help? Because I know sometimes we get so scared and we get so worried. What do you say to them to calm them and just let them know that they can receive help?
Yeah.
I think we need to make it easy, and there are a few ways we can do that. One is that you can ask a lot of different people for help. You can ask a student, a peer, as we've done at Hustos and John Jay, and that peer can help to connect you. We can ask a faculty member. We did interviews with students at some of the community colleges, and we asked them, who do you trust? And they said, we trust the faculty who are teaching our classes and are our advisors. I've taught a long time. It was just brought tears to my eyes to hear that. CUNY could do a much better job preparing faculty to get help for their students. Every one of us could have the address and website of the pantry on our course syllabus. We could be leading campaigns against stigma. CUNY more and more has television screens where short videos could talk about the benefits of getting help, not for any moral reasons, but to help you achieve your educational goals of graduating school. So I think those are some of the steps we can make. Make it easy to get help and have help available everywhere.
And everyone watching, whether you're a student or just a regular resident, you can call the National Hunger Hotline at 1-866-3-HUNGRY. That's run by us at Hunger Free America. And I just make the point, everyone in our society needs help sometimes. This myth that anyone's self-made, first of all, ignores the fact that they had parents, but ignores the fact that they have a society that helps everyone on a daily basis. If you're a billionaire and you ride in your jet, air traffic controllers funded by our tax dollars are helping your plane. You're getting lots of help. Low-income people who are working shouldn't be embarrassed to get help they deserve.
And I'll just add that for Food Bank for New York City, you can go to our website. We actually have what's called a food locator, so foodbanknyc.org, and you can put in your zip code and where you live, and all of the food pantries in your area will show up, and so you can also seek help that way.
And if I could just add, though, that in relation to the students have to feel safe. They have to feel like you care about them, about what's going on in their lives. And so one of the things that we really make sure we practice at the Single Stop office is when a student comes to us, possibly because we're all social workers, possibly because we've all worked in the social services field for many, many years, with all underserved populations. When students come to us, we understand where they are, and they know that, you know, we care about their issues. When students feel that they can, you know, that they can confide in you, it's easier for them to come. So, and I'm using the you in a broad term, but whether it's faculty or whether it's staff or whomever, we were very fortunate at Bmcc to be able to get the single stop services onto the syllabus. So students then can know from that document that the service is available to them. And professors are actually working with students in making sure that if they identify, if they see anything, they're referring the students, you know, for services. So students can receive the service in any number of ways. It's sort of cross-training everybody else on the campus to really care. It's developing this entire culture of care that CUNY is really invested in at this point.
And although CUNY is doing a very good job, what else can be done? And are there any other successful models on other college campuses across America that you've seen that are really fighting food insecurity head on?
The California system, from what I've seen, is perhaps furthest along, and that's in part because the California legislature has invested significant resources in food security, mental health, other well-being programs, and they've taken it, they've made it a priority, and they understand that they will be helping their students to succeed by putting taxpayer resources into these services, that's money that will come back to the state and to the communities. And so there are basic needs groups on many of the California state universities where people working on housing instability, food insecurity, mental health, other issues come together and look for ways to coordinate and integrate services, make it easy, and to create that culture of caring that we're talking about a lot here at CUNY.
And in Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, the states have declared that their interpretation of USDA rules are that everyone in a community college in their entire state automatically meets the work requirements for SNAP if they're low income enough to deserve it, and that's what we're pushing New York State to also do.
I think too that CUNY can start earlier identifying students who may need services from the moment that they come into our doors. We have the FAFSA information that gives us a sense of those students who are fully Pell eligible and fully TAP eligible, and usually that's associated with how much income the family has. And it's to me one of the easiest ways to identify those who can then be sort of targeted. You know, with very few questions. Do you need help with food? Do you need help with housing? What are the needs that you have? And I think in identifying them sooner in the process would probably serve best to help them through the journey that they have.
And you know, a couple of other ways is, you know, as you mentioned, you know, as soon as they come in through the door, whether you know, there should be a flyer that's instituted. We get, as a student in CUNY, you come in and you go through orientation and you get all of these documents, and very rarely does it have any information that has to do if you need help, if you need food or anything like that. That's one. The other thing is that we have to constantly go through, as CUNY students, advisement every semester. And that's another time that you could throw that document. And especially now with emails and with access, every month an email should be going out. Just a reminder to students that, look, if you need help, this is where you need to go. If you need this type of help, go here. If you need food, go to the food pantry and stuff like that.
So I guess the more that you're putting it out there, the better.
Right. And to say the obvious, we can be ensuring that every student gets registered to vote and every student who's eligible votes. In the next election, the 2020 national elections, it's going to be some very stark choices about federal policy around safety net programs, around food, around education, and we need to be discussing those issues in the next year or so in order to inform voters. And college students can play an immensely important role in educating voters and putting issues on the agenda. We've seen just in the last few years on the issues of Black Lives Matter and the issues of gun safety and the issues of LGBT rights that young people, college students, have brought these issues to the forefront. And we need to be seeing that around food and food security as well.
Amen.
Kamisha, any final words?
Yeah, I think definitely just getting involved. I mean, you raise a really good point about the power in numbers and the power in the voices of college students everywhere. So really getting involved and bringing a friend along. Everybody can help.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Joel, Kamisha, Nick, Deborah, Avery. I thank you so much for being here, and to our studio audience for taking the time to join us, and you at home as well, and on Facebook and on our website. Keep checking our website and Facebook for information on our future town halls. I'm Tina Beth Pena. Good night.